I don't see the purpose of it. I really don't.
I don't want to sit in 5 days in a house trying to figure things to do in the dark.
But it's not fun, you know? Power's been off since 12:30 last night. We've got 60 pounds of ice.
They created these conditions. It was unnecessary. Now it's time for them to do the right thing.
Millions of people in the dark for a second day. Nobody is happy about it. PG&E has cut the power to more than 630,000 customers. So let's take a look now at the PG&E outage map. Every purple dot is one community that has no power. But we're learning 50,000 customers in the Sierra Foothills have gotten power back. But many people are nearing 36 hours with no power.
Yeah, a lot of us are really feeling the pain of this. PG&E is doing this because of some pretty dangerous weather. It's a lot of wind out there. There is no humidity. And the combination of those two things can start and then spread a fire really quickly. All right, so this morning we're asking the question, are these public safety power shutoffs helpful or harmful? We want to know what you think. Vote abc10.com/vote. Open up our app. Vote that way. You can vote on this live too and let us know what you're thinking. And right now it looks like 60% of you are saying no. We'll keep an eye on that throughout the show.
And as you know, we've been looking at Facebook and reading your comments for about 48 hours. So we wanted to know what your thoughts were. And Rebecca has an interesting point. She says this is not just about living without technology. So she lives on a farm. She has to make sure her animals are fed. She doesn't have a lot of water. And she's saying, what am I going to do if there is a fire? I'm not even worried about the technology. I'm just trying to get by hour by hour. So we'll continue to share your comments throughout the day so we can get different perspective of everything.
Yeah, everybody's got a different story of what happens when they don't have electricity. Okay, we are covering the story from every angle this morning, as we have been since the power went out. Seemingly, what, 24, 48 hours ago? We lose track at this point. Carlos Herrera is in Nevada City. Thousands of people were without power for a second day. Giacomo Luca in Moraga. Firefighters just got a fast-moving fire under control that started about 7 hours ago. But first, Rob with an update on the continuing windy weather.
Listen to it. Do you hear it on my microphone? You know, every time I'm out here in the Gilmore backyard, I'm thinking, you know, at some point it's going to start to slow down and we'll start to move away from this because that is the trend throughout the course of the day. But there's always more gusts. There's always another strong wind gust. And when you look at this for all elevations, it's still ongoing. We got to get through today and then things start to get better. But for the mountains, perhaps not till early tomorrow morning. So let's go ahead and show you some of the current wind speeds. And then what you're not seeing there are the wind gusts. So what I see is, yes, the winds are starting to slow down a little bit for the coastal range, the west side of the valley. Certainly it's been pretty calm almost the whole time for Auburn and Placerville. But higher up, the winds have really been cranking overnight. And I just want to point this out. I know this is a constant thing that is brought up again and again, and it makes sense because people without power are frustrated because the weather has not directly affected them. However, some of the strongest wind gusts we've seen since midnight, 59 miles an hour there just off to the east of Lake Oroville, certainly north. Just so you know, those are all lined up in the Feather River Canyon where the campfire broke out related to a transmission line, 56 miles an hour. So where some of these lines are, we have seen some very strong wind gusts. It's just not where people actually live. And then out in the coastal range, you can see somewhat near Calistoga, that mountain there, St. Helena, it has been very strong, 70 miles an hour recently. So let's fast forward. When is this really going to be done? Well, I still think we're going to have on and on stronger wind gusts until this afternoon. By this evening, the valley does really start to catch a break from this, and we should be done with the red flag warning. It looks like on and off, though, again, for the mountains until maybe early tomorrow morning. And officially, red flag warning, dry and windy, enough that if a fire did break out, it would grow quickly. That's going to be until 10 o'clock early in the morning there on Friday. Should end earlier than that for the valley, 9 p.m. later on tonight. Now, the other thing, too, is that it's been kind of cold lately. This is a great reminder of what's been going on lately, that fire weather is not dependent on temperature. We maybe think of that because usually some of the big fires break out during hot, windy, and dry weather. It only has to be windy and dry with dry fuels. If you get those three things connecting, you're going to have some fire conditions. And we love to see this at the bottom of your screen, hour by hour. The general trend for the valley first, then the mountains, will be wind speeds starting to slow down. And slowly but surely, we'll move away from the red flag warning. Now, this started with the weather. It's going to end with the weather. But as far as the power outages, it's up to them to make the call.
Yeah,
back to you.
That's it. Fluid situation, Rob. Thanks. We are following more breaking news. ABC 10's Giacomo Luca has traveled to Moraga. Overnight, a fire sparked and forced people to get out quickly. Giacomo, what happened?
Well, we don't know exactly what the cause of that fire was, but we do know that firefighters responded quickly. The police department all door to door knocking to make sure that 140 families lived in that area, that they got the warning and they got out. They reacted fast, and they were able to get the fire control, learning about 70% contained now, but
Okay, Giacomo, signal obviously breaking up there. Wind certainly is an issue with some of our technology as well. That fire started about 2 o'clock in the morning in Moraga, which is right near St. Mary's College. Within, I would say, 2 hours, they were able to get it about 50% controlled, and we're hearing that they have most of it under control there. We will check back with Giacomo as the weather situation warrants. In the meantime, let's get to Carlos Herrera, who's in Nevada City, where thousands of people there remain in the dark, and they're not happy. Carlos?
Yeah, they're not happy at all, kind of wondering why the power is out here. Let's take a look here, because this is actually a tourist attraction, especially on a Thursday morning. Take a look. Broad Street is actually one of the most popular popular roads here in Nevada City. Not many people walking around. All businesses on Broad Street are actually closed, all but one. And let's walk in here in this one, because he was having trouble all morning here. He decided to open 2 hours late, and let's take a look inside just to see. Not only are they in the dark, but take a look at this cooler here onto my right side. Unfortunately, the ice is melted, but that's not all the problem here. Take a look at the aisles. All dark. Employees were forced to use flashlights to direct their customers as well. They're concerned about all the goods inside the refrigerator, inside the freezer as well. That's all going to go to waste. The owner we spoke with, he says, you know what, we're going to probably lose thousands of dollars if the power continues to be off for the rest of the week.
We were supposed to open at 6 in the morning, but yesterday as power was out, so we opened at 8 in the morning, so 2 hours late, and we closed by 10. So yesterday we closed by 5:50. So huge loss, because people can't use debit cards, no ATM, and only thing they have to pay through cash.
He had a grocery delivery earlier this morning. He had to send that back. He says that's money loss as well. He says hopefully the power returns soon, hopefully before Saturday, because that's when people start coming in here in Nevada City. Just to tell you about how much tourism means to Nevada City and Nevada County, take a look at these numbers provided by the state. At least $360 million just in visitor spending to the state of California, $114 million in food service, and more than 3,500 jobs were generated just last year to accommodate tourism in Nevada County. If the power continues to be shut off here, you can just imagine the frustration from people who live here and who work here.
So, Carlos, the store manager that you've been talking to all morning, Mr. Ali, he indicated what? That he was still selling some product in that store, but it's just a cash-only kind of thing, and dry goods?
Yeah, dry goods, no debit cards, no credit cards. The problem here, though, Walt, is that people are coming in here and they're standing in front of the door and saying, well, is it closed? Is it open? And they just simply turn away. So that's losing money as well. And then they walk in and they don't know where to find stuff because it's really dark in here. So again, they said they're making some money, but there are employees here that they have to pay. So that's not generating enough money to pay them, so of course they're losing that.
Right. He also said what he takes in about 5,000 or 6,000 a day, and he was at like 300 for the morning.
Can you imagine that? They opened 2 hours early today. They are planning to close by noon if the power doesn't come back. So it's a lot of money going to waste.
Yeah, probably a lot of businesses in the same boat throughout Northern California right now. Carlos, thank you. Found a good location to get what the regular folk are dealing with today. All right, Rob, we're all dealing with the wind, and everybody's saying, okay, we're still got it going. When's it dying down?
Yeah, it's going to be later on tonight. And, you know, just for that store, that, you know, your income is going to go up and down, but the bills still have to be paid. There's always money going out. So what we have is another windy day. The temperatures are going to be in the 70s. It's going to be the Bay Area, the Valley. It doesn't matter where you are. The wind will be with us. But first, starting tonight, a couple hours past sunset. We will start to see the wind relax a little bit, humidity come up. Red flag warning should be over in the valley first, then eventually overnight at some point for the Sierra, maybe as late as 10 a.m. tomorrow.
All right, thank you for that, Rob. Okay, so a lot of kids are having the day off today since their schools don't have power, but there are some new schools joining the list.
And the power's out for millions, but does that cause cell towers to go down as well? Our Verify team verifies.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.
Okay, my friends, it is 9:13. Welcome back to Morning Blend. Millions of people in Northern California without power right now, as you know. So here's what you need to know before you go. Take a look. Live look at PG&E's outages. Right now, 600,000 customers are without power. One customer is basically one home, one business. Could be 3 or 4 people living in that home. So we're looking at millions of people. The purple dots show planned shutoffs, which are now current. Some of these people have been without power for much more than a day. And even more schools are not open today because they have no power. The whole Grass Valley School District has canceled classes and after-school program. No classes today at Folsom Lake Community College's Placerville campus. Esparto Unified School District also no school. And overnight, UC Berkeley said they've canceled classes for the second straight day. We're constantly updating the list of closings at our website, abc10.com. Okay, Rob, I mean, continued questions for you. Obviously, the conditions still very, very windy. Red flag warnings still very much in effect.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to focus on the weather, and then I'm going to address, which is still the #1 question about where the strongest winds are and why it's affecting so many people not in those areas. So as far as for power outages. So let's take you through the red flag warning area. It is large. It is almost all of Northern California. That's why this this wind event has had so much hype, because it doesn't really matter where you live. You are in a zone in the weather where it's very dry and it's very windy, and if a fire starts, it grows very quickly in these kinds of conditions. So again, it's going to be at times, it's not a consistent thing, but certainly at any point between now and maybe 9 p.m. in the valley spots, if a fire starts, it could grow very quickly. And then for the Sierra, it's all the way overnight until tomorrow. That's a big change, because just yesterday we're talking about 5 p.m. today. That would be great, but it looks like tomorrow we're going to be looking at a change, and then we could see the red flag warning expire. Just talking to some people in Southern California living in Ventura County, these strong Santa Ana winds are kicking up. Same kind of thing, dry offshore wind, a huge fire risk, and just so you know, millions of people are going to be in this red flag warning area. Also, their respective power companies, San Diego Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison, they may cut power to their customers as well due to a fire risk. So it's how power moves from where it's generated around the state that is a pressure point and a point of concern for sparking wildfires. In fact, the whole liability issue of, is a power company liable for any damages from a fault on their line, that was started by San Diego Gas and Electric from a lawsuit there. So let's go ahead and talk about the current wind situation. You can see it's kind of patchy. We have still not seen very strong winds in Auburn or Placerville or Jackson. I mean, a good chunk of the lower Sierra has not been windy, but just above it has been. And I think that this is a really important point to bring up. Now, I'm going to keep bringing it up because it's a disconnect that makes sense, but it needs to be explained. Some of the strongest wind gusts have been in the higher terrain, very close to these transmission lines. So, you know, there's only so much data you can get out of this. There's only so many weather sensors, but it's close enough for cause of concern. When you have 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts or 60 or 74 near big power lines, it could cause a problem, and that's where we're seeing the strongest winds. And, you know, how the power gets to your house is through the grid. It's one way of thinking about this, I think that's really useful, is it's kind of like your internet connection at your house. You know, if it's not working at your house, you're not going to say, well, my computer's totally fine. You understand that somewhere down the line something happened. A bank of servers went down, and that's why it's being interrupted. It's the same way with these transmission lines. If there's an interruption at any point along these red lines, weather-wise, where the weather is extreme, they may cut power to that line, which ultimately, if you're downstream of that, that may affect you. The most classic example is this, the campfire. It was very windy where the campfire broke out. It was not windy at all in the beginning where Paradise is, and we know what happens. So if it's not windy in your neighborhood, just a canyon over or far upstream or close to one of those transmission lines, it could be a completely different world affecting you. It's an abstract thing, but hopefully you can connect the dots and make sense. It's frustrating, but hopefully that makes sense. We've got 70s for the highs later on today. By Friday, everybody should be done with this red flag warning business, and then we're going to move on to a much better weather weekend. The issue then, though, is now that the weather's helping out, they're going to check those lines, and PG&E is going to make the call, along with those other power companies, about when they feel comfortable turning the electricity back on. Could be a while after that. Kirsten?
All right, thank you for keeping us updated, Rod. 9:18 right now. Police in Auburn are doing extra patrols right in the areas where the power's out. They say they're seeing this, though. More people driving erratic. Don't do that. They say they want people to know just because the power is out does not mean it's the time to start driving dangerously. Now, while you are on the roads this morning and all day, keep in mind that traffic lights are dark in a lot of neighborhoods. Police in Santa Rosa are telling us that they have responded to several accidents at intersections where power is out. They want you to slow down and treat all intersections without power as a four-way stop sign. That means that everyone gets a chance to go one in a row. Now, even if your neighborhood does have power, all this wind can bring down trees and bring down those power lines, so look out when you hit the road. All right, so nothing is easy about living without power, but some people are finding ways to cope. Hank Kevinaro shows us how people in Placerville are living life all in the dark.
Are you guys having a good Wednesday night in the darkness?
Even with the lights off, some in Placerville are finding their way to enjoy their nights.
Yeah, we keep it lit even when it's not, you know what I'm saying?
As they look for a spark of normalcy.
Well, Wednesday nights are always karaoke here. I've seen trouble all my days. And the fact that they still did it
on a blackout is pretty extraordinary. Yeah, and you know, we wanted to be upset and mad about it, but we decided to embrace it. We might have to do a blackout Wednesday once a month.
Owner Al Griffin knew people needed a place to come together.
In this world.
People like Neil Fruza.
This is my place, man. This is my home.
And across the street, Bene's Italian restaurant also kept the lights on.
So we went to Plan B, which is almost like survival mode.
Bringing a different atmosphere. But people still looking for normal.
A couple of days without power, I can deal with that.
So whether you prefer the quiet or karaoke, everyone is looking for the light inside the darkness.
We created a family here.
Hank Cavanero, ABC 10.
Well, Hank, that was an awesome story. Anytime we can get Volare in a story in Placerville, we're winning. The power is out for millions right now, which means none of the usual luxuries of life are working. But a lot of our viewers want to know, how about the cell phone? The Verified team is on it next, right here on Morning Blend.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.
And that said, millions of people are still without power, and most of their usual creature comforts are out of commission. What about your cell phone? Will it continue to have service after the lights go out? You asked? Jason Puckett verifies.
There are multiple comments online right now that look like this. Quote, your cell phone won't work if the power goes out at the cell towers, and it will. That claim sounds like common sense, right? If the cell towers lose power, they don't function. But that's not exactly true. In recent years, with fires across the state, the California Public Utilities Commission urged cell providers to put in backup power in high-risk locations, and some of them have already done that. When we reached out, a Verizon rep said many of their towers have backup generators that they will be refilling to keep service during the outages. T-Mobile also said they have generators and batteries to keep services online, as well as temporary generators they can move around. AT&T said they're working to deploy generators and equipment to keep customers connected, and also opening unlimited talk, text, and data to users in the community. We haven't heard back from Sprint yet. Bottom line, don't just assume you won't have service. The idea that all cell towers will shut down without power is actually false. The major providers have generators and backup plans to keep service. And that's an important distinction. Without power and without service, people may be tempted to turn their phones off or put them in an airplane mode to conserve battery. Now that's still a good idea if you can't charge your phone, but also check periodically to see if you do have service and make sure there aren't any alerts or warnings for your area. If you're seeing any other claims out there, send us an email and we'll check them out. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
Okay, I just want to take you through the anatomy of a close call. The most critical period I was worried about a fire breaking out was in the middle of the night tonight and early tomorrow morning. That's when the winds were going to be the strongest, the humidity the lowest in many areas, and it's dark. And it's very difficult to conduct any sort of evacuation or throw a lot of resources at a fire when it's in the middle of the night. And also, people not as responsive to collecting new information or to be able to respond. But that's exactly what happened. This is in an area called Moraga. It's a community. It's beautiful out there, by the way. This is south of Orinda. Prime spot, and there are people that live there. And the way that this broke out was a huge concern because it's what we call the urban wildland interface. Urban wildland interface, when it's right close together. Now, there's a reason why people want to live next to open space, because it's beautiful. It's nice to be near that. However, if a fire starts in that area, all of a sudden it's got plenty of fuel and it takes it very close to where people live, and structures and lives are even threatened. There is an advantage because of the access, maybe even fire hydrants. Some firefighters may actually be able to use engines and access and make use of some of those tools, so it can be helpful. But in a big fire weather event like this, it just makes it very tricky, because one other thing that can't happen is this. You can't use aircraft, fixed wing aircraft, most likely in the middle of the night. Some helicopters are cleared and to be able to be used in the middle of the night, but most are not. So that's one thing that is very useful on big fire weather days that can't be used. So it started, and we were concerned. This happened at 2 in the morning. We were all here. And then we saw the winds in the area up to 30 miles an hour. And then it's not where the fire is, it's where it's going. If it was able to work its way through that community, or at least part of that, then it's got tons of terrain to burn. And then on the other side of that is the East Bay. So they pinched it off. They were able to get after it, but it was a close call early this morning. We will be right back.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now. This is breaking news on Morning Blend.
We're up in arms about this. This is not the way to treat consumers and citizens of California.
These events historically are the events that cause the most destructive wildfires in California history.
Okay, so more than 1 million people are without power after PG&E cut power to hundreds of thousands of homes throughout Northern California. They're doing it because it's hot, dry, and we are seeing the strongest winds that we've seen in a very long time.
All right, so we want you to look at PG&E's outage map. You see a lot of dots, a lot of different colors representing a lot of different things right now. So what we want to do is zoom in on some of those and let you know that all of these dots represent areas where power has been shut off for a lot of people. But we have some good news. PG&E has restored power to 50,000 people in the Sierra Foothills. They expect to restore power to another 60 to 80,000 later this morning. We're going to keep an eye on that and let you know when that power gets turned back on for those people. I know that they are waiting for that to happen. Now, the point of all this is to prevent wildfire. So this morning, we're asking you, do you think the public safety power shutoffs are helpful, or do you think they're hurting everyone? Vote now, abc10.com/vote right now. 58% of you are saying no, they are not helpful, and you're a little upset about it. A lot of people upset, Rob.
How do we know, Rob? I mean, we've talked about this.
Right.
How do you know if the shutoffs are working or not, if there is no fire, or there are fires, but maybe not caused by PG&E?
Right. I mean, how at the end of this how do you define success after this? Because if there's no fires, then it worked, or maybe they didn't need to do it in the first place because there was no fires. I will just say this. We're focused on the power situation because that is happening. That's the reality. But there are literally dozens of ways that fires start. And I just want to point out the one that broke out overnight. Again, the Merrill Fire, we don't have a cause on this yet, but we know one thing. This area was covered by a planned power outage. Okay. So who knows, and they will investigate this, but as it broke out, it was in a bad spot. It was during some very gusty winds. People were in their homes. They had to be evacuated door to door in some cases. But luckily, they got enough crews in there to pinch this thing off, and it's not a situation. Of course, we sent a crew there earlier this morning. Problems with the cell phone service. So that's one of the reasons why we haven't been able to check in continually live. Sure. But certainly a scary moment because it's those, you never know where it's going to be. You never know if it's going to be there, if it's going to be near Santa Rosa, or if it's going to be near Placerville. We don't know, but that's why these are blanketed across broad regions because the weather is roughly the same everywhere. Dry, windy conditions, especially where those power lines are.
Okay, Rob, thank you for all that. We will check back with you for your next hit, as we like to say in the business. Okay, our team coverage continues this morning. One area where people are being hit really hard by the power shutoffs is in Nevada City. A lot of people there are not thrilled about losing power, nor would we expect them to be.
I haven't seen a person say, yeah, this is something I'm excited about. You know, ABC 10's Carlos Nevada is live in Nevada City. Carlos, how are people dealing with the outages? We know they're upset, understandably so, but businesses, they're losing a lot of money too.
Yeah, especially here since it's a top destination for tourists, especially on the weekends and a Thursday morning. People here tell me they see a lot of tourists walking down these streets here, especially Broad Street, which is the main thoroughfare here in the heart of the city. Not today, though, and all businesses in this area are closed, all but one. We're talking about shops, restaurants, New York Hotel right across the street that gets a lot of tourists on a Thursday morning. Not happening today. This is the only business here that's open. It's a grocery store right in the corner of Broad Street in front of the New York Hotel. Let's step inside. We've been visiting here all morning. Never really impacted economically here. The lights are out. Freezers aren't working. Ice has melted in a lot of coolers, just like this one. We've seen employees directing their customers aisle to aisle with flashlights because customers can't really see. They're also concerned about products that are in the refrigerator and in the freezer. They think that that's going to go to waste. The owner here tells me that they usually make about $10,000 a day. Yesterday, only a couple of $100 because they had to open early and close early. Here's what he had to say.
Like people from different area, they comes over here to visit, so they buy a lot of stuff like beer, food, dairy food. So all the things we kept in the fridge, they went bad. So that's a huge loss, not just to our stores, but all the stores we have over here. Restaurants are closed.
He's also concerned about produce going to waste. He says a lot of people stop by here from the hotel to pick up some snacks. That's going to go to waste as well. A delivery of vegetables was made earlier this morning. That was sent back. He says that money also going to waste. He's expecting to lose thousands and thousands of dollars, but he's also concerned about the other businesses here in Nevada City. As I mentioned, a top tourist destination here. Just to give you an idea of how much tourism means in Nevada County, here's what it generated for the state. $360 million in visitor spending, over $114 million in food service, and more than 3,500 jobs generated to accommodate tourism in the state of California. Really a big deal. We talked about how people aren't happy about this. They're not thrilled about it. I say those words don't really make justice to how business owners are feeling here.
Okay, when I'm looking at that refrigerator full of food that should be refrigerated, now I do notice that you're wearing your jacket, Carlos. Is it cold enough that maybe those items have a chance if things come back on today, or is it probably all lost?
He says there is some chance, but he says he's practically given up at this point.
Wow.
He's not gonna count on that. I am wearing my jacket. It is cooler outside. Speaking about the weather, wind has picked up a little bit here, but a lot of people I spoke with this morning say, yeah, they're not as strong as they expected it to be. They hope power comes back tomorrow.
Yeah. You know what? I hope some local food bank sees this, and the owner is willing, instead of throwing the stuff out, maybe a food bank can rush over there. They can take the food. The owner can write it off. I mean, there's got to be some way, instead of just letting it sit there.
That's the solution.
Let's put that food in somebody's hands before it gets over the edge.
Yeah.
Carlos, thank you. Appreciate that. Let's check in with Rob. Rob, any hope for the people in Nevada City, Grass Valley area, that this is going to get solved soon?
Well, you know, that was really a heartbreaking live shot there. And while you have a good point, I mean, what positive can come out of this? So start thinking in that direction just to get you through it, because I can tell you two things. Weather-wise, things are going to get better later on today. But also, we don't know when the power is coming back on for all these communities, because the weather's not going to make that call. They're going to inspect the lines after the weather stops. And it's just not stopped yet. For the most part, we're seeing breezy conditions, gusty in places, but things have drastically gotten better for the west side of the valley and the coastal range. But the winds are still really strong in the high Sierra. Not in Auburn, not in Placerville, not in Grass Valley or Nevada City, but certainly in areas just up in higher elevation from that place. I want to point out a couple things here. You can see that what we're going to be dealing with is strong wind gusts from overnight. That's really what dictated the concern for power outages. We saw some really strong gusts overnight, 50, 55 miles an hour, up to almost 60 miles an hour. This was well within the forecast. This was predicted. You can see 73 there for some of the higher elevations north of Calistoga. And it's that combination of dry air and strong winds where a fire could start and grow quickly. Now, maybe the wind didn't happen in your neighborhood, but remember, if a fire started away from your neighborhood and the winds carried it to your neighborhood, then you are in the line of fire and it is a risk to you, even if the winds never really picked up in your town. As far as what we can see later on tonight, the valley gets better. As far as the Sierra, it does get better as well, but we may be looking at an extended period of red flag warning conditions in the mountains until tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. So this is going to be with us for a while, but we will be looking at better conditions in the days ahead, and certainly the weekend will be a big weekend where maybe the power comes back on and life gets back to normal if it can. Back to you.
1 5 4 3 2 1. No, I mean we're literally on the other side of the church. I don't know what happened. Mic check 1098 76 54321 54321. This is my mic check. Okay. Same.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.
9:41 right now. Thank you for staying with us. We are taking a live look in PG&E's public safety power shutoff map. You see it there on your screen. A lot of different colored dots. What this means is that people are sitting without power as a wildfire prevention method. So far, PG&E has restored power to 50,000 people. They're expecting to get it back on to another 60 to 80,000 this morning. We'll keep you updated when that happens. But if you want a link to this map, we'll text it to you. All you got to do is text the word shutoff to 916-321-3310. Now, we got something else you need to keep in mind. PG&E's website has been in and out of service for the last few days because so many people are trying to use it. That's why the utility created a new website, hoping it'll work better for us all. You can look up your address to get more information. The URL is pretty long, so we put that link on abc10.com/links for you so you can have access to it. All right, so we all know that this is all related to the weather. It's windy, it's dry. Rob, help us out with what's going to happen next.
Okay, well, we're still going to be looking at some winds, gusty at times. I don't think it's going to be as bad as what we saw early this morning, but certainly there's a concern. Remember, it doesn't have to be the worst ever for something to start and to keep going. Let me give you an example. This is just showing up as red on a map, right? What does this really mean? Well, yesterday we had portions of this in the coastal range and certainly the portions of the west side of the valley here, where it was not only red flag warning conditions, but it's what they call extreme. It was single-digit humidity and gusts upwards of 55, 60 miles an hour. And that did, in fact, happen. That's what was forecasted. That did, in fact, happen. We had a really close call near the Bay Area for a fire breaking out, but they were able to get it. Now, what we have next is pretty strong winds through much of the day. They're going to be coming in and out, and at some moments it'll be clear skies and there's not much wind, and then an hour later it may pick up. So it's just going to be in the range of a red flag warning for dry and windy weather through the rest of today. It's 9 p.m. for the valley, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning for the Sierra. And I need to mention this because this is a California fire weather event, because what's moving in now, that extreme that I talked about, that's moved now down to Southern California, where they're looking at wind gusts of 70 miles an hour or stronger. And we know what happens with red flag warnings in Southern California. They are also going to experience planned power outages as well. San Diego Gas and Electric is saying, hey, we may cut power to 30,000 people. So there is more to this story as it spreads down to the southern portion of the state. As far as the wind, we're going to see some of the stronger wind later on in the day for maybe the higher elevations of the Sierra. And this is a really important point in all of this that I've been making for the last 2 days, but I'll make it one more time if you haven't seen it. For so many places where the power is shut off, in Placerville and in Grass Valley and in Auburn and in Jackson and a whole host of places, the winds have not been that strong, but upstream in some of these narrow canyons and passes and ridge tops, they've been very strong, 50, 60 miles an hour, up to 74 just north of Calistoga. And that just so happens to be where the power lines are, the big transmission lines. You know what I'm talking about, the big towers with all the electricity running through it. The start of the campfire was related to one of those. So it's not where you live, it's anywhere along these lines. And you can see the grid is vast, and it happens to move through very rough terrain. So if there's a problem anywhere along these red lines where power maybe is flowing through, if it originates from a hydro dam, in some cases it's made out of state. In Utah, in Oregon, There's power that comes into Southern California from a nuclear power plant in Arizona, of all places. So if there's a problem along the line, they're going to look at that and they're going to make the determination, because if something happens, they may be liable, right? Here's a perfect example of it's not windy at my house, so what the heck is going on? The morning of the campfire, I was working. It was not windy in Paradise. We did have red flag conditions, but what was going on was in the Feather River Canyon, very strong winds, upwards of 70 miles an hour estimated, and a fire did break out related to a power line, and then you know what happens next. So if it's not windy at your house, there may be a reason upstream that things are changing that may be affecting you. As far as the fire weather, it gets better later on today, 70s through the weekend. And then one more thing I want to mention, rain. We need rain to move away from the fire season, and we've got our next chance next week.
All right, we're talking about a lot of stuff, Rob, between the wind, rain, and all that. A lot happening. All right, let's go to Giacomo Luca. He is live in Moraga. Giacomo, I know you were running out of here about 2 this morning, chasing this fire. What's the status?
Well, fortunately, Walt, everything is under control. Firefighters were able to get a very quick grasp on the fire that broke out after about 1 this morning up here in Moraga. It unfortunately evacuated 140 families, but I am pleased to say right now that all of those families have been allowed to return back to their homes. No one was injured, nobody was hurt, but it was certainly a rude wake-up call as folks were sleeping in the middle of the night and this fire broke out. We don't know the cause right now, but what we do know is that as firefighters were coming out, police officers were also in the area because the power was shut off. They had to go knocking door to door because they didn't have any other way to contact folks. And we talked to some people that were living in the area that faced those evacuations about these public safety power shutoffs.
I think this was the prudent thing to do given the weather conditions. Hopefully in the future, the utility will be better prepared so we won't have to have these shutoffs, but all things considered, can put up with the inconvenience if it saved a wildfire from starting anywhere in the northern state.
Now, there have been several public safety power shutoffs just this year. This is by far the largest we've ever seen, and I've been speaking to folks for the past several weeks about these shutoffs, and really folks are taking these many different ways. Some people say this is a great idea, while others are saying, you know, they think that the power should be shut off, but perhaps not in certain areas. Of course, folks here just glad to be back in their homes today after that fire broke out. Again, no word on the cause yet, but we're hoping to get some answers on that soon. Back to you all.
All right, thank you so much for that look, Giacomo, and giving us a little perspective on what people are going through this morning.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, while you were on the roads this morning, keep in mind traffic lights dark in many neighborhoods. Police in Santa Rosa told us they responded to several accidents at intersections where there was no power. They say slow down, treat all intersections without power as a four-way stop. That advice works everywhere. Even if your neighborhood does have power, all this wind can bring down trees and damage power lines. Those could come down as well. So be on the lookout for almost anything when you're on the road, especially during these high wind scenarios. Governor Newsom is reacting to those PG&E power shutoffs, and he's not happy, to say the least.
They've created these conditions. It was unnecessary. We're doing everything in our power, my gosh, doing everything in our power to help them help themselves. Now it's time for them to do the right thing and get out of bankruptcy and get this system to the 21st century.
He did go on to acknowledge that those shutoffs are necessary by PG&E to keep people safe, with strong winds posing a wildfire risk. And California politicians are getting an earful about the shutoffs from the voters, and some are trying to direct that anger at PG&E. Brandon Rittiman now investigating all things politics and PG&E for our series, Fire, Power, Money. He uncovered PG&E spends millions to influence our politics. Listen to this. He says many of the politicians calling the company out are also getting its cash. Take a look.
PG&E spends a bundle of money to influence our politics. It donated more than $4 million just to state-level campaigns in California last election. More than 80% of the state legislature took some PG&E money, just to give you an idea how widespread this is. That's come to a halt since our reporting raised questions about it and got the attention of the federal judge who oversees PG&E's probation. The company itself is a convicted federal felon, still serving time on probation. And right now, we're dealing with power outages in California because PG&E can't be trusted to keep its power grid safe during high wind. So it does deserve to have people angry at it. And the governor obliged. People should be outraged. They should be infuriated, Governor Gavin Newsom was quoted saying this week. It's not how things should work in the industry. None of us are happy about this. And yet, PG&E donated more than $208,000 to help elect Newsom last year. As part of our reporting, we did ask him this summer if he stands by taking the money and whether he'd give it back. The governor refused to answer both questions. But this isn't just a Democrat thing. This is Doug LaMalfa, Republican congressman. It seems as if California, which fancies itself as one of the top world economies, is becoming a third world country, he said. Expecting the power to stay on when the wind blows isn't that giant of a leap for mankind. And yet, the company that can't seem to get things right gave LaMalfa $13,000 in donations from its PAC since the last election cycle. And here's the rub. LaMalfa represents paradise in Congress, but he took $5,000 of those dollars from PG&E's PAC after last year's Camp Fire killed 85 people there. And it wasn't just him. Jim Nielsen represents paradise in the state Senate here in Sacramento. He's got a headline on his official site blasting PG&E shutoff as unacceptable. What he can and did accept was a $6,400 donation from PG&E towards his campaign last year. We asked him if he'd give it back. His office never responded. Neither did the state's two major political parties, each of which gladly accepted more than $500,000 from PG&E last election cycle, both of which have elected officials acting shocked right now that PG&E's grid is in such a mess we can't trust it not to burn us down. The point is, for all the wailing and gnashing of teeth about PG&E from the people in power, PG&E makes a point of protecting its monopoly by pumping money into our politics. When the federal judge asked PG&E why the political spending was more important than fixing its power grid, the company said it wasn't. But it said it spends that money to make sure its interests are, quote, adequately represented in the halls of power. On this day, when millions of us in California may literally be powerless, we thought you ought to know.
All right, thanks for digging, Brandon. Will the massive PG&E power outages have an effect on SMUD customers? You've been asking, and we're answering next.
Sarah had added. Okay, that's interesting. So she didn't obviously speak to that. So yeah, I spoke to one of the ladies this morning who has a ranch over by, in that area. She lives by Granite Bay.
I also saw some of the Bay Area outlets tweeting out video yesterday of them setting up barricades at the headquarters at Beale Street. Yeah, so, which is where everyone should direct their anger. If you're gonna yell at PG&E, that's the place. Those are the people who cut the maintenance budgets for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 decades.
So she said she would be available this afternoon. And I would,
Oh, okay. Yes.
You know, everything, how she's been watering, how they're doing. And I think it's just another angle of like, okay, yeah, power effects, power effects, traffic lights, all these other things we're covering. But this is an interesting element.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.
And before we go, we have a question many of you have been asking, and that question is going to be answered by Brandon Ritteman.
Okay, so I'm going to present the question. A lot of you were asking this. Why not SMUD?
Why not SMUD?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out after a decades-long fight with PG&E, way back that started in the 1920s, the voters of Sacramento got their wish and we got our own power company, and it is not necessarily beholden to power generation that PG&E brings to people around the state. Now, that's not to say that it couldn't affect us, but you got to bear in mind, PG&E's got 16 million customers. We're talking about roughly 2.5 million losing power right now. So if all of PG&E shut down, it might be a different conversation because there is a big backbone to the power grid. But the reality is, right now, if you're in Sacramento, things are pretty good. I used my electric coffee maker this morning, flipped on my lights, got in my electric car, and came to work. Not too bad. But here's what it looked last night. I just want to show you this video. It's actually a still picture that we got from Tracy Humphrey last night, if we've got that. This is the view from Auburn last night, looking at Sacramento. And yeah, we look like kind of the bastion of civilization right now here, you know, for all the pokes we may have taken over the years about Cowtown this and whatnot. We're looking pretty good in Sacramento right now. And frankly, I'm curious to see if this event this week gives any more juice, no pun intended, to the efforts to municipalize around the state, because we've seen more people looking at, hey, do we really want to be part of this, you know, massive monopoly that PG&E has? PG&E's fought those very aggressively in the past, but this is almost like a giant commercial for the other side.
Especially when you look at situations like this and when you think about the fact that they had to go to federal court and they've been convicted and all of this stuff. Yeah, a lot of people want to separate themselves from PG&E. A lot of people not happy with them right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to be happy about. Right now.
We have SMUD here in the East Bay near San Francisco. It's East Bay mud. So there are certain pockets of the state who have done what you said, which is do your own thing.
Yeah, Roseville as well comes to mind.
Absolutely. Thanks for watching. More news coming up in a minute.
where the ranch is located, yeah.
Mic check. But if we're gonna go from 10 all the way to 12:30, we're going at 12:30. What? Oh. Hey, it's Tracy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Hello?
Hi, Justine, Carlos here.
What? Oh, hi.
Hey, so the owner of the beauty salon is bleaching a customer's hair, and she says she needs 10 minutes.
Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. I'm Brittany Begley. We are live with our continued coverage around the clock. We want to make sure you're prepared. Thank you so much for watching us right now on Facebook.
And I'm Kirsten Holmes. We've been talking about the PG&E power shutoff that has left hundreds of thousands of people in California without power. A lot of people upset about it. Okay, so let's look at this outage map. The people you see represented on this colorful map here is not so happy right now. Now, I do have some good news to pass along to you right now. PG&E has restored power to 50,000 people in the Sierra Foothills. Now, they said that they were going to restore power to another 60 to 80,000 by this morning. We are still waiting on confirmation that that has happened or when it will. So we'll keep you posted.
It is true. I have no power, so I am waiting for that. Now, we have a list of all the communities impacted right there in the bottom of your screen. We can also text you PG&E's maps right to you. Just text the word power to 916-321-3310. Again, that number is 916-321-3310. And we will send you a link, and we're also going to leave that number on the bottom of your screen so that you feel prepared whenever you need it. We want to make sure that everyone is prepared. And, you know, with power being shut up and some of the dangerous fire weather, you know, it is windy, right? No humidity. So it's just a recipe for a big problem. As I've been telling you guys, I don't have power, but Tracy, I know you're in the same boat. You don't have power. How are you holding up?
You know what? I'm kind of over it.
Yeah.
You know, at first couple of days, you know, you got a flashlight, you're kind of moving around a little bit. I can't find anything. I'm really concerned about what's going to go bad in my refrigerator. I feel like I'm having to do the sniff test for everything that's left in the freezer. I'm just crossing my fingers that the power comes back on tomorrow. I do know, though, that the whole goal, I know, is to alleviate the concern for wildfire development, but it is a little bit of an inconvenience. So here is a look outside right now. You can see that camera just kind of shaking ever so slightly. We do have the opportunity for some gusty winds in the forecast again for today, and that's why that red flag warning is indeed still in effect. Currently outside is 63 in Sacramento, 61 in Stockton, 59 in Modesto, 62 in Marysville, and 39 in Tahoe. If I had to find one positive caveat, at least the overnight lows were in the 40s in the foothills. So we did not have any power, but you opened up the window and actually was quite pleasant, at least for the overnight. Here's a look at some of the current winds that we're watching. North to northwest around 13 in Stockton, 18 in Sacramento, 20 in Marysville. But you know what? That really doesn't tell the story. Where are you looking at the contours in the background, where you see the orange and the red and the yellow? That is where you have the likelihood for even gustier winds to be coming in. And you can see that driving in on parts of the northern coastal range here. That red there showing about 35 to 40 mile per hour winds expected. And then once you move in near the foothills pushing into the Sierra, you see a brighter red, and that means more intense winds are expected. That's going to be in our forecast throughout the day today, and that's also why the red flag warning is still in our forecast as well. Here's a look at some of those peak wind gusts we've had since midnight. 28 in Santa Rosa, 37 in Fairfield, 30 in Sacramento, 37 in Marysville, 22 in Oroville, 26 down in Modesto. The opportunity again for the gusty winds in the forecast throughout the day. That is why we also have a wind advisory in effect. So you can see the counties and the areas that we're mostly concerned about: Northeast Bay Hills, also through the Sacramento Valley, as well as for parts of those eastern foothills. What can you expect? North to easterly winds coming in gusting up to 40 miles per hour. That wind advisory is in effect until 6 o'clock this evening. Of course, in tandem with that, we also still have the red flag warning. And that is again for those same areas that I just showed you, in addition to many parts of the Bay Area. High fire danger still in the forecast, with outdoor burning not recommended during this time frame. More than 80 to 85% of wildfires are caused by human error. So of course we have to do our part there. That opportunity for that red flag warning and the high fire danger has been extended. It was 5 o'clock in the evening originally. Now the National Weather Service has extended it till 9 o'clock tonight for the Sierra. It will be extended until early tomorrow morning. So a couple of other things that we definitely need to make sure that we're well abreast of. I know we're talking a lot about the power lines, but you know wildfires can also start by several other methods. Mowing and weeding. We always ask that you do that before 10 o'clock in the morning. Never use your lawnmowers in dry grass. And you know, you feel like you don't have to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you're pulling over on the side of the road, don't do it where it's really dry, because you know the exhaust and the underbelly of your car is extremely hot. We have really dry vegetation, and it doesn't take much for things to kind of spark and just get out of control. The opportunity again for that high fire danger in the forecast till tonight. Here's a look at some of the afternoon highs we'll have today. 75 in Placerville. We'll see the opportunity again for those temperatures. Upper 70s in Jackson, mid 60s in Arnold, 67 in Twain Harte, 75 degrees in Auburn. Here's a look at what you can expect for Tahoe for the next 5 days. You can see See 52 for Thursday, 60 for Friday, lower 60s coming in Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then here we are closer to the Bay Area with 70 in San Francisco, 72 in Oakland, 81 in San Jose, 76 down in Santa Cruz. And then once you hit the valley floor there, mid to upper 70s expected for afternoon highs, which is just a skosh below average for this time of the year. 76 for Sacramento, 76 for Galt, and 75 degrees in Roseville, just to name a few. 10-day forecast, temperatures topping off near 80 for Friday and Saturday, and then heading through the weekend. Still looking at those 70s taking over much of next week. That's a look at your weather. For your traffic this morning, here's Brittany.
All right, one area we've been watching throughout the day really has been the Auburn area, especially with gas. So we checked in again with Gas Buddy to find out where are the problem spots and how are we going to solve it for you. So happening now, Forest Hill as you approach 80. A lot of gas stations do not have gas this morning. So what I want you to do is travel a couple of miles down and you're going to find gas station options on High Street near 80. So keep that in mind. And of course, that is something we will update you on throughout the day. Limited gas also Sunset Boulevard at Park Drive in Roseville. Thankfully, you have a lot of different options for you. Stanford Ranch Road, a couple of different gas stations will be able to help you. If you are headed out, you can also take a look at this in Sacramento. We have a gas station that has an issue as well. Limited gas, a couple of them actually, El Camino near Business 80. So as you head out, think about taking Marconi Avenue. And of course, again, as I've been telling you all day, we will update you on TV and online. As you're driving, keep in mind some traffic lights will be out. Why? Because we don't have power. So earlier this morning, we've been telling you that throughout the day to make sure you're prepared. Now, police in Santa Rosa responded to multiple accidents at intersection without power. They are now asking everyone to slow down and treat it as a four-way stop. Now, even if your neighborhood does have power, these high winds can bring down trees, they could damage power lines, and that means big problems for us. So remember to take it nice and slow so you don't run into a big problem this morning, Kirsten.
Yeah, no, a lot of people are. You got to be careful out there on the roadways. Thank you, Brittany. Okay, so in Nevada City, nearly 7,400 customers are still in the dark. Carlos Herrera is live there right now. Carlos, you have been out to a bunch of places this week. Tell us, what are you seeing right now? The sun is up. People are out and talking right now, right?
Yeah, they are, but not as they usually are. A ghost town in Nevada City, especially on Broad Street, which is the heart of the city. All the businesses there, talking about shops, restaurants, hotels closed as well. All but one grocery store was open. That's the bad news for business owners, but not because those businesses on Broad Street were closed. Doesn't mean that other businesses are open. This is a hair salon here right off of Highway 49. They had to resort to the 1960s, 1970s technology to get some light in here. Obviously, they're open, but that doesn't bring any difficulties for the owner here. Donnell, you're busy going here, working. It's kind of tough for you, right?
It is tough, and along with the technology, we've had to resort to oil lamp and Marcel iron, but my poor client doesn't have warm water either.
Oh, Andy, you're struggling here.
Yeah, I was okay until right now. It's a little chilly now.
It's a little chilly, but my clients, luckily, I'm blessed, they are diehards. Cold water, power, no power, they're here to get their hair colored.
I've been with Donnell for 10 years, and there's nobody like her. She's amazing.
Oh, Donnell, now, you obviously, there's this business here right in front of the gas station across the street. That's been closed. You say there was chaos since yesterday after the power was shut off.
Yeah, really, but not just the gas station, it's been the entire community has been really affected. PG&E did a great job of warning all of us over again through email, phone calls, text messages that it was going to shut off as soon as it did. And so luckily I went and got gas the night before, but many did not. And the two gas stations that we have here had hour-and-a-half long waits. Wow. And I saw fighting taking place, people yelling, people driving the wrong way down the roads because they were just not using their brain. Everybody's just checked out by the confusion, and I mean, it's just no power. So I've just resorted to camping skills so I can keep working. I think I'm the only business besides those two gas stations that is open.
It's all part of the frustration. Andy, no power at your house.
Correct. I actually managed to get the last bag of ice. So only two supermarkets open, which were like a zoo. I managed to get the last bag of ice, shove it in my freezer because everything's defrosting, obviously. And it was cold, and I resorted to lots of candlelight. And my boy was like asleep by night. He goes, there's no internet, nothing to do. So, but it's good to go back to basics. I grew up like this because, but it was fantastic. So yeah, it's cold and we're just making the best we can do with it.
Definitely. Still, of course, such a struggle here in Nevada City. Some businesses open, others close. The truth is that everyone here is hoping that the power comes back on sooner rather than later. We'll send it back over to you guys.
All right, thank you for that. You're getting the hair done, and like you gotta stay fly. I appreciate that, Carlos. I appreciate that perspective. All right, let's talk about this. There was a creative sign of protest. A group of PG&E customers in Nevada City put a spotlight on the situation. Becca Hobberger went there to take a closer look at what they're talking about.
Broad Street, which runs through the heart of Nevada City, is lit by gas lamps, but everything else in this town is dark.
We're going to have a little light parade here and a discussion about what's been going on with PG&E and what looks to be like an unnecessary power outage. We're pretty supportive, I'd have to say, with having a power outage during any kind of catastrophic winds, but we're not seeing this, and this has been a big economic hit for our community, and I'm sure for a lot more communities in Northern California.
I own a building downtown, and this definitely affects my business, my day spa, my Airbnb, and just my whole life.
But I also think that a lot of people in Nevada City, and actually throughout California, are saying that at this point in time we should have PG&E not be the one monopolizing our power and the only choice that we have.
I think it's a little ridiculous because there's no wind, and I totally understand cutting off the power if there's wind, but it's been a non-windy day, and we've all lost business because of it.
Maybe the most 5-mile-an-hour winds, and that was towards the late afternoon, but it's been like this. And it is frustrating. I understand what they're doing for other places, and we have to be affected by it.
Because they can't just shut down one spot.
I wish they could.
We're up in arms about this. This is not the way to treat consumers and citizens of California.
I don't want to sit in 5 days in a house trying to figure things to do in the dark.
Yeah.
Despite the outage, the city council still held their Wednesday meeting, but they had to cut it short because the generator powering the lights in council chambers was running out of gas.
All right, thank you for that, Becca. Now, a lot of people who have no power said they are not happy, but they are not alone. Take a listen to what Governor Newsom had to say about all of this.
My kids are at home right now. I want them in school. I've got a bunch of businesses that are impacted, and I'd rather criticize Donald Trump than act like him talking about my businesses in Northern California, but we're in the middle of wine crush, and folks are running around trying to get generators right now in the middle of crush. It's very consequential. And by the way, I'm outraged because it didn't need to happen. Didn't need to happen if you had a investor-owned utility was making kind of investments that your investor-owned utility was making down here, and focusing on modern transmission lines, and focusing on modern ways of turning on and off lights that wouldn't be disruptive in the aggregate to 1 million or 2 million people, as it potentially may impact over the next 24 to 48 hours. So it was unnecessary. They're in bankruptcy because of their terrible management going back decades. They've created these conditions. It was unnecessary. We're doing everything in our power, my gosh, doing everything in our power to help them help themselves. Now it's time for them to do the right thing and get out of bankruptcy and get this system to the 21st century.
Okay, so California politicians are getting an earful, as you can bet, about these shutoffs from voters. Some are even trying to direct that anger towards PG&E. Brendan investigated all things politics and PG&E in our series. We've been telling you about it for a while now. It's called Firepower Money. He found out that PG&E spends millions of dollars to influence politics. And listen to this, a lot of the politicians that are calling PG&E out right now also took cash from PG&E. Take a look.
PG&E spends a bundle of money to influence our politics. It donated more than $4 million just to state-level campaigns in California last election. More than 80% of the state legislature took some PG&E money, just to give you an idea how widespread this is. That's come to a halt since our reporting raised questions about it and got the attention of the federal judge who oversees PG&E's probation. The company itself is a convicted federal felon, still serving time on probation. And right now, we're dealing with power outages in California because PG&E can't be trusted to keep its power grid safe during high wind. So it does deserve to have people angry at it. And the governor obliged. People should be outraged. They should be infuriated, Governor Gavin Newsom was quoted saying this week. It's not how things should work in the industry. None of us are happy about this. And yet, PG&E donated more than $208,000 to help elect Newsom last year. As part of our reporting, we did ask him this summer if he stands by taking the money and whether he'd give it back. The governor refused to answer both questions. But this isn't just a Democrat thing. This is Doug LaMalfa, Republican congressman. It seems as if California, which fancies itself as one of the top world economies, is becoming a third world country, he said. Expecting the power to stay on when the wind blows isn't that giant of a leap for mankind. And yet, the company that can't seem to get things right gave LaMalfa $13,000 in donations from its PAC since the last election cycle. And here's the rub. LaMalfa represents paradise in Congress, but he took $5,000 of those dollars from PG&E's PAC after last year's Camp Fire killed 85 people there. And it wasn't just him. Jim Nielsen represents Paradise in the state Senate here in Sacramento. He's got a headline on his official site blasting PG&E shutoff as unacceptable. What he can and did accept was a $6,400 donation from PG&E towards his campaign last year. We asked him if he'd give it back. His office never responded. Neither did the state's two major political parties, each of which gladly accepted more than $500,000 from PG&E last election cycle, both of which have elected officials acting shocked right now that PG&E's grid is in such a mess we can't trust it not to burn us down. The point is, for all the wailing and gnashing of teeth about PG&E from the people in power, PG&E makes a point of protecting its monopoly by pumping money into our politics. When the federal judge asked PG&E why the political spending was more important than fixing its power grid, the company said it wasn't. But it said it spends that money to make sure its interests are, quote, adequately represented in the halls of power. On this day, when millions of us in California may literally be powerless, we thought you ought to know.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.
Well, the time now is 10:26. If you're just waking up or joining us on Facebook, I'm Brittany Begley. We've been talking about the PG&E power shutoff that's left thousands of hundred people in California without power. We're live and we're going to continue that coverage round the clock with live news coverage you need to know about. So take a look at this map. You can see the outages. People have been without power for more than a day now. Now, the good news, PG&E has restored power to 50,000 people in the Sierra Foothills and expected to restore power to another 60 to 80,000 people by this morning. We want to remind you that power is being shut off in some pretty dangerous fire weather. It's windy, there's no humidity, and that means fires can start and spread quickly. Take a look at this wildfire. Look at this. This happened overnight. Moraga, Cal Fire is calling the Merrill Fire. You can see it on your screen. I know ABC 10's Giacomo Luca, you've been updating us since we went on the air at 4:30. What can you tell us now?
Well, fortunately, the fire, well, it's contained. Everybody that was evacuated, the 140 families that were woken up around 1 in the morning and forced to evacuate, they're all being told that they can return back to their homes tonight. So that's very thankful. But of course, that 40-acre fire definitely concerns some folks who have been dealing with the public safety power shutoff. We talked to some of those folks who had to evacuate earlier this morning.
I think this was the prudent thing to do given the weather conditions. Hopefully in the future, the utility will be better prepared so we won't have to have these shutoffs, but all things considered, can put up with the inconvenience if it saved a wildfire from starting anywhere in the northern state.
Now, while this most recent public safety power shutoff was by far the largest and unprecedented number of customers, 800,000 that had their power proactively shut off for safety concerns over potential wildfire risk, there have been several of these PSPSs, as they are so called, this year. I've talked to many folks all across the region, and there are some differing opinions certainly on whether or not the company should be doing this. And but for folks at least living here today, they're happy that they can get back to their homes after this evacuation, after this fire. Certainly a big scare given what happened. We'll send it back to you.
I bet they are. Thank you for your updates. I know you will update us throughout the day. In Vacaville, winds were really whipping around today. A fire broke out earlier this morning. Britt Moore was there and has more on how they quickly contained that fire from spreading as well.
The wind is so bad right now that the Vacaville Fire Protection District had to call in for additional resources to help them fight an early morning brush fire. It happened along Sunnybrook Lane. Deputy Fire Chief Doug Rogers tells me 1 acre of land burned. There were wood piles and brush around a house. That house itself, though, did not catch on fire. So they put this thing out relatively quickly, but they made sure to do all they could to prevent this fire from spreading.
We call more resources quicker because, as you can tell, we can barely stand up out here. So if we do get a fire established, it's really going to take off on us.
The deputy fire chief telling me overnight things were relatively calm. That's the good news there, but they say they are ready to go just in case anything else pops off later this morning.
That is good to know. Well, this week is the 2-year anniversary of the Tubbs fire that devastated wine country. Of course, our Lilia Luciano went to Santa Rosa to see if they're feeling 2 years later, how they are feeling about it. She talked to CAL FIRE chief who responded to the Tubbs fire and yesterday responded to another fire in the area. Take a listen.
We're in the town of Occidental in Sonoma County. This is about 20 minutes west of Santa Rosa. Brian, can you tell me what's happened here today?
Yeah, we were dispatched for a vegetation fire here in Occidental, right here in town on the outskirts, and we had engines get here pretty quickly, held it to about 1 acre.
Okay.
Made a good
small.
stop, very
That's
small.
good.
It's steep, as you can see. It's a good stop. We have a lot of people staffed up right now in preparation for the winds.
I heard that there were air crews that came in and were released. Was that what stopped it initially, or was it the ground
They
crews?
help. They give us eyes on it, and we'll
Okay.
lay retardant across the head of it to slow it down.
Do we know what started it?
No, it's under investigation.
Okay, I'm not seeing it. At least I'm not seeing any power lines.
There's no power lines that I see overhead.
It is 2 years to the day, or to the day after the beginning of the Tubbs fire. Do you work that fire? What do you remember?
Yeah,
about
we
2 years
were,
ago?
me and all my coworkers were there that night. Same predictions as tonight. You just never know if it's going to surface, and it did surface. Yeah. And the wind blew hard. Yeah, I grew up in Coffee Park.
Oh, you did?
And
Wow.
a lot of my friends lost their homes, and I was right there when it happened. I've got 20 years in now, and been to a lot of fires, seen a lot of destruction and sadness, but once it was in my own hometown, it did change things a bit, knowing whose houses were burning. And you reach a point, though, where you don't really care about property. You just hope everyone's okay. Yeah. That's all that really matters. You can always rebuild. Yeah. But we like to win as firefighters, and that was a hard one because it didn't feel like we were winning at first, but we got it eventually, and it's just one of those things you can't predict it. You just can try your best and keep a good attitude, and pray everybody's safe.
All right, and Tracy, I've been telling you, I don't have power.
Yeah.
You don't have power. Yesterday, I went to Target, grabbed the last case of water,
Did you really?
the last
You were
flashlight,
fortunate.
and the last phone charger.
Oh,
How about
know
you
what?
guys?
Well, we went to go grab a generator, and,
Yeah.
and they were all gone. And then went to Home Depot, and they were all gone. And finally had to borrow one from someone that did not need it. But at least we're using it for the refrigerator, so you don't have to worry about everything going too bad, right? And then I have neighbors, and everybody's just like, what are we going to do? How much longer is it going to be? And no one knows. So here's what we're looking at for today. So it's 63 degrees outside. Winds out of the north to northwest at 12 miles per hour. Humidity at 19%. It is extremely dry outside. The conditions, it feels good though. If you like the 60s, 63 in Sacramento, 61 in Stockton, 59 in Modesto, 62 in Marysville, and 39 in Tahoe. So we have conditions outside that are still a little brisk and blustery from time to time. And here are the areas that we're most concerned about. So here's a look at those current winds. 18 mile per hour winds in Sacramento, 20 20 in Marysville, 29 in Fairfield. Most of those winds coming in out of the north, which are drier winds. They just only exacerbate the opportunity for more dry conditions moving into the area, and they also tend to be warmer winds. Everything that you see here with the orange and the red, those locations could see peak winds anywhere from 35 to 40 miles per hour. Here's a look at some of the highest wind gusts we've had since midnight. 37-mile-per-hour winds in Fairfield, 30 in Sacramento, 37 in Fairfield. You add in the opportunity for a spark in there, and with a decent wind coming in around 35 to 40 miles per hour, it would really take quite a bit for firefighters to kind of get ahead of that. So that is the concern. We are looking at critical fire weather concerns. So here's what we're watching as we move into time. This is based on models, and this is our future winds that we're expecting. 9 o'clock in the morning, we have some pretty gusty winds coming in, giving us extreme fire danger. 1:30 in the afternoon, what are we still expecting? Well, we do still have those breakouts of that orange and that red in here coming in just in parts of the North Bay coastal mountains. And you're also still looking at the opportunity for that red right here. Those are our contours in the background through South Lake Tahoe, just near Highway 50, near the Placerville area. Still looking at the opportunity for some pretty significant winds coming in from time to time. Eventually, as we move into later on tonight, into early tonight, you'll see the opportunities for those winds to lessen and diminish, and the opportunity for fire weather will diminish along with that. So just how dry is it outside? 12% Fairfield, 19% in Sacramento, 13% in Auburn, 18% in Placerville. I always know when it's dry when I wake up in the morning. I'm just looking for a good moisturizer, right? Because I feel like I'm just drying out. So let's revisit. You know, it was just almost 2 years ago that we had a similar scenario for weather conditions, and that had a lot to do with those North Bay fires. They came October the 8th, 2017, and they came because of the Diablo winds that come from the direction of Mount Diablo. Descending winds coming in through canyons. They warm, they compress, and when they really start to move in, they heat up. That lowers the humidity, and do you know in some instances Diablo winds can be up to 50 degrees warmer than the surrounding air. That's why we have the concern. So with the winds expected to be funneling in throughout the area from time to time today, we do have that wind advisory in effect until 6 o'clock this evening. North to east winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour. In addition to that, again, we do still have the red flag warning. It has been extended to 9 o'clock tonight for the Sacramento area, and also until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning for areas closer to the Sierra. The opportunity for high fire danger in the forecast. Outdoor burning, of course, is not recommended. So here's some of the active fires that we have going on. The Merrill Fire in Contra Costa County, 40 acres are burned, 80% containment. That was the one near Moraga. Also looking at another fire, the Bryceburg Fire. Acres burned, 4,500. It is 25% contained. That one is in Mariposa County. So those are the two active fires that we have close to our viewing area that we're going to be watching. And these are some of the takeaways for high fire danger. We could be looking at downed power lines and trees, power outages, not the ones that PG&E are, kind of doing themselves, but you could have that just by some gusty winds coming in. And then fire starts can, of course, spread rapidly. Afternoon highs for today, 75 in Auburn, 64 in Arnold, 72 in Sonora with plenty of sunshine. It's a nice day, but again, with those brisk winds in there from time to time, we do have to be vigilant. Afternoon highs in Tahoe, 52 for Thursday, lower 60s coming in to round out the rest of the weekend. And then once you take a look at the Bay Area, 70 in San Francisco, 81 down in Silicon Valley, 72 in the East Bay, and then the North Bay, 78 in Napa, 82 in Santa Rosa. For parts of the Valley floor, 78 in Stockton, 78 in Tracy, 78 in Manteca. Just in case you're wondering, average daytime high this time of the year closer to around 81. So we're just a skosh off the mark. And then 76 for Sacramento, 77 for Davis, 77 for Colusa, and 76 degrees for Yuba City. Our 10-day forecast showing afternoon highs in the mid to upper 70s. You can see that with plenty of sunshine in the forecast. And then as we round into next week, we do have a small opportunity for a few showers on Thursday. I do want to let you guys know PG&E customers right now, 620,000 without power. That's a pretty significant number.
Yeah, that's a lot of people affected. You got to think that those people are thinking about what their food is doing in the refrigerator. If I just bought groceries like Brittany did,
$150.
did I just waste that money? Is anybody going to reimburse me for that money? What am I going to do with my kids while they're out of school? That is a lot of people affected.
Yeah, I had to take my son to work yesterday, and now I'm thinking about laundry. I got to find a laundromat. My laundromat's in Placerville. That's probably not going to be open. So just a lot you don't think about until you're in that mess. Speaking of, I know Tracy was just talking about how she has a power generator. We want to make sure you hear this warning as well.
Yeah. Do not, I repeat, do not run that generator inside your house. This is why. Auburn firefighters had to show up to a carbon monoxide leak at a home in downtown Auburn. That is not what you want. Someone had their generator running inside. Firefighters say properly placed carbon monoxide detectors saved their lives. But what if they had not been in the right place, and what if they hadn't been working? And police in Auburn are doing extra patrols in areas where the power is out. The police department says they're also seeing, get this, more people driving erratically. Don't do that either. We want people to know just because the power is out does not mean that it's time for you to just drive crazy. That is what you don't want to do, Brittany.
I know, especially with those four-way stops. You're like, do I go? Do you go? And then you're in a big mess.
It's already confusing. Don't add to it.
It is. At 10:38, we're also hearing from more schools talking about confusing as far as parents and planning what to do. A lot of them don't have school because of power. So the whole Grass Valley School District is canceling classes and after-school programs. They say they hope to have school back in the session on Friday. In addition to Grass Valley Unified, all four Pleasant Ridge Unified School Districts are also closed in Grass Valley. There will also be no classes at Folsom Lake Community College, Placerville Campus, and Esparto Unified School District. Schools are also closed tomorrow. We have a full list on our website, abc10.com, because it keeps changing, and we will update you. And take a look. PG&E has opened resource centers in the community that don't have power. This is a great place to go. It's free. You can charge your phone, get AC. So they have room for 100 people. It's open from 8 in the morning all the way to 6 in the evening, as long as we don't have power. So find a location near you at abc10.com. You can always ask us on Facebook. Our team behind the scenes answering the questions throughout the day. Everyone's staffed
Yeah,
today.
no, everyone is in and everyone's working to get you answers because so many people are in the dark. Millions of people across California are in the dark right now. And most of the things that we use to keep us comfortable,
yes, like
when there's
phones.
electricity, when there's no electricity, a lot of those things are out.
I know, and a big question everybody in our neighborhood's asking, what about cell phones? Will it work even though we don't have power? Of course, we had to go right to Jason Pickett to verify all of that for you.
There are multiple comments online right now that look like this. Quote, your cell phone won't work if the power goes out at the cell towers, and it will. That claim sounds like common sense, right? If the cell towers lose power, they don't function. But that's not exactly true. In recent years, with fires across the state, the California Public Utilities Commission urged cell providers to put in backup power in high-risk locations, and some of them have already done that. When we reached out, a Verizon rep said many of their towers have backup generators that they will be refilling to keep service during the outages. T-Mobile also said they have generators and batteries to keep services online, as well as temporary generators they can move around. AT&T said they're working to deploy generators and equipment to keep customers connected, and also opening unlimited talk, text, and data to users in the community. We haven't heard back from Sprint yet. Bottom line, don't just assume you won't have service. The idea that all cell towers will shut down without power is actually false. The major providers have generators and backup plans to keep service. And that's an important distinction. Without power and without service, people may be tempted to turn their phones off or put them in an airplane mode to conserve battery. Now that's still a good idea if you can't charge your phone, but also check periodically to see if you do have service and make sure there aren't any alerts or warnings for your area. If you're seeing any other claims out there, send us an email and we'll check them out. With your Verify, I'm Jason Puckett.
Okay, so a lot of people are concerned about cell towers during shutoffs. And when the power goes out, that cell phone is your lifeline to help and to stay up to date. But I got to tell you, if you on social media a lot, that runs your battery down quick. And you ain't got no power, you might want to judge if you need it.
Yeah, it was a good reminder last night. I was like, I can't get on social media even though I like it because my battery's going to drain and then I'm going to be in problems. So we want to know, are cell towers affected by all these shutoffs? Here's what state officials actually told us.
Generally, cell towers by all providers have a battery capability for a length of time depending on the draw, but generally 8 hours plus. Most major cell components, the hubs overseeing the remote cell towers, have standby generation. The challenge then becomes not the batteries or the generation, but the capability to get fuel to them to keep them up and operational.
All right, so let's dive a little deeper into that because he's a technical guy.
Yeah.
And that may not have made a whole lot of sense to regular people. Okay, so you think about the major hubs, and they run for 5 to 7 days at a time. And so now they're bringing in convoys and standby generation because if the power outages withstand more than 5 days, they're prepared with backup generators and batteries because they're needed as a backup to the backup.
That is good to know because I'm really thinking I'm going to have power out for 5 days, so we have to be
At least
prepared.
you're prepared.
Yep.
Hopefully it won't last that long.
And speaking of being prepared, AT&T Wireless and AT&T prepaid customers in areas directly affected by the planned power outage in parts of California, the company is providing unlimited talk, text, and data by issuing credits and waiving overcharged fees. And I have to say, I'm an AT&T customer, so I am grateful, at least for that.
Yeah, okay. Are you in the specified zip code? You need to call AT&T and make sure that works. Make sure you contact your phone provider and make sure that you can get that discount. It runs from October 9th through midnight October 13th. Limited time only, but call AT&T and make sure that you are one of those people affected.
I will definitely be doing that a little bit later on today. Well, at 10:43, if you're just joining us on Facebook thinking, all right, what is going on? Well, we're just keeping you up to date on the power outages. We want to make sure that you are prepared every single way that we possibly can.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this, but hundreds of thousands of California people are without power. You may have already known that, though. And we are live, and we are continuing our round-the-clock coverage right here. Let's take a look at some of the outages right now. Some of these people you see on this map, the colorful screen, yeah, it looks happy, doesn't it? They're probably really upset. Those people have been out of power, some of them, for more than a day now. It started, you got to think, if it started midnight last night, it's been more than 24 hours. PG&E has, though, some good news. Restored power to 50,000 people in the Sierra Foothills. We're looking for another 60 to 80,000 later today. It was supposed to be this morning. We haven't gotten confirmation that PG&E has restored power in those communities yet. We'll keep you posted. But we also have the communities impacted at the bottom of your screen. Let me check to see. Yep. Down at the bottom of your screen so that you can get that information. And we got your back in another way, too. PG&E's map can be texted to you. That way you can keep it on the go. Text the word power to 916-321-3310, and we'll send you the link to this map so that you can see if the power is on or off in your neighborhood or in your friends or family neighborhood if you're just trying to check on them. We'll keep the number that you need to text at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.
Yeah, and we're going to continue to watch Facebook. I'm reading some of the comments right now. So if power happens to be restored in your house, let us know.
Let us know. We want to know that.
We do want to know that. So we've been talking a lot about Placerville. Obviously, parts, they don't have power. But one bar said, all right, we're going to have some fun. So a karaoke bar, let's start that again. Use generators to stay open to help people smile.
Okay, yeah, we need some good news in all of this irritation, right? Hank Cavanaro spent his night there. I think he may have had a good time, but I want you to take a look at this.
Are you guys having a good Wednesday night in the darkness?
Even with the lights off, some in Placerville are finding their way to enjoy their nights.
Yeah, we keep it lit even when it's not, you know what I'm saying?
As they look for a spark of normalcy.
Well, Wednesday nights are always karaoke here. I've seen trouble all my days. And the fact that they still did it on a blackout is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, and you know, we wanted to be upset and mad about it, but we decided to embrace it. We might have to do a blackout Wednesday once a month.
Owner Al Griffin knew people needed a place to come together.
In this world.
People like Neil Fruza.
This is my place, man. This is my home. Woo!
And across the street, Bene's Italian restaurant also kept the lights on.
So we went to Plan B, which is almost like survival mode.
Bringing a different atmosphere. But people still looking for normal.
A couple of days without power, I can deal with that.
So whether you prefer the quiet or karaoke, everyone is looking for the light inside the darkness.
We created a family here.
Hank Cavanaro, ABC 10.
All right, that was Hank Cavanaro helping us out. We had to pull in a team. You know, this is some coverage. We want to make sure that everyone gets the latest, greatest, up-to-date information. So we actually pulled in teams from around the company to help us out with this. So that was Hank having a good time. If you're going to do some extra work, at least go have some fun, right? Thank you, Hank.
That is right. And our team is working behind the scenes round the clock to answer your questions. So we are looking at your Facebook comments.
Yes. What are people saying?
Shelly is saying, hey, I'm from Fairfield. What's going to happen? When will my power go on? And how about wind conditions in that area? It was windy this morning.
Okay, so windy this morning, still windy through this afternoon. And you know what? It has been extended, that red flag warning, until 9 o'clock tonight. So the winds are still going to be in play. when your power goes back on, I'm with you, Shelly. I want to know when my power is going back on too. Hopefully tomorrow.
Did you hear the collective when you said that red flag warning has
Well, let me tell you what I haven't heard. We don't have power. You do. Where's our invite?
Yes.
I invited you. Don't be doing me now. You know I invited you, y'all. She playing y'all right now. Fake news.
Get up-to-the-minute information during the largest planned power outage in state history, affecting 800,000 customers in more than 30 counties. Be the first to know breaking updates and alerts delivered straight to your phone. Download the ABC 10 News app now.